Hey, good evening, everybody. It's the regularly scheduled meeting of the planning board. Mike Capuano. I am the chairman of the planning board. With me tonight is our vice chair, Amelia Aboff, our clerk, Jahan Habib, and our member, Lynn Richards. Um, we do, in fact, have a quorum for the items that we're taking up tonight. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation. A video recording of these proceedings will be available on the city's website or by emailing planning@somervillema.gov. This meeting is being recorded. We will have a new item that will be read into the record and heard tonight. So for anybody that will be providing testimony, a reminder that if you want to share a comment and provide testimony, I will ask you to state your name and your street of residence. You don't have to give me a direct address, a street address for our official record. So we have a number of items on the agenda tonight. The first is the approval of meeting minutes for the January 16th, 2025 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those draft minutes? Does anybody have any comments, questions, revisions? Okay. Seeing none, the chair moves to adopt the draft meeting minutes of January 16th as the final meeting minutes of the planning board, seconded by Amelia. Steve, can you please call the roll?
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
Aye. We have meeting minutes. We next have a request for a continuance for 20 to 23 Cummings Street to the February 20th meeting because they have two separate applications pending for the same site. We need to make two separate motions. Chair moves to continue 2023 20 to 23 Cummings Street, which is ZP 240046 to the Feb 20 meeting, seconded by Amelia. Steve, call the roll.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
That's continued. The other one for Cummings Street is ZP 240085. Motion to continue to February 20th, seconded by Amelia. Steve, please.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
Aye. That agenda item is continued. 720 to 722 Broadway has been opened, has been heard. We have had discussions with that applicant. We will be bringing that applicant back for a discussion tonight, and we will also be opening 53 Chester Street, which at that time will be read into the record for the notice of public hearing, and we will have a presentation by the applicant and welcome anyone who wants to testify. So what I'd like to do is invite the applicant and the applicant team for 720 to 22 Broadway.
This is Steve Carey in the Planning Division. I am promoting Ann Vigorito, Christopher Vance, and Sandra Venus. And if there is anyone else that would like to be promoted as part of this applicant team, please use the raise hand icon. I see Katya Patsiadlo. As well as Tom Laughlin. I believe that is everyone.
Good evening. This is Attorney Ann Vigorito. Mr. Galatis from Lindell's, who is joining as part of the team tonight, if he could be promoted as well, because he does want to address the board, not as public comment, but as part of our team, if that would be okay.
Yeah, of course. And I understand that there are some updates from the last time that we met. I would welcome a not necessarily a presentation if you have it, but an overview of what has changed since the last time we had a chance to meet with you all.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ann Vigorito. I'm the attorney for the project. I'm at 424 Broadway, Somerville. So this evening, our team, we've got full team. DiCamillo Associates is here. He's our applicant. Joseph Federa is the manager. Chris Vance and Sandra Venus from Vance Architects are joining us. We have Tom Laughlin from GM2. He's our engineer and traffic consultants. And Katia from Verdant, who's our landscape architect. So we're all here. Bill Galatis asked to join because Lindell's was a little bit of a topic the last time, and he was present at our neighborhood meetings and he spoke with the team. So we want to have him this evening. I did talk to Lance Davis, reached out. He continues to support this project. You know, in the staff report, it has stated that the historical preservation staff will be approving the proposed changes. They're just, I know there are little backlogs, but there is the anticipation they'll be approving and making those changing for what the planning board had recommended previously. And just as a side note, there is a land plat that's required for this project. There's 3 parcels that all have to join in, and it wouldn't make it zoning compliant, and therefore, you know, there was some talk that it couldn't be voted on, but it is now my understanding, and it was put in the staff report that you folks can vote on this tonight, hopefully. Would be very excited about that. So, you know, for the site plan approval and the special permit. So there were some changes that were recommended. I know you wanted to see larger units, 3 bedrooms. Chris Vance, our architect, did work in what we call 2+ bedrooms. So, you know, a smaller bedroom that could be used perhaps for a young child. So at this point, I'm going to ask that Chris take over because he's going to show you those changes and go over them with you as well. And then whatever comments or, you know, concerns that need to be voiced, you know, after him and Bill Galatis, we're here.
Sure. Chris, before you present, I will ask, I assume that you have seen the response by the housing division on the 2+ change that you all have come to us with as a response to the board's request for family-sized housing, and the housing division's response that is not actually a family-sized unit, that a small bedroom is not a bedroom.
Yeah, we did review their comments, and you know, I think what they had mentioned is that a 2+ bedroom is not a 3-bedroom. I don't think they necessarily referred to it as family housing or not, but they did mention that a 2+ bedroom, you know, is not a 3-bedroom unit.
And we did, as I recall, ask for you to come back to us with a plan that included at least a 3-bedroom on this project, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did look at that, and you know, working within the constraints of the square footage we had, and not reducing the unit count, which would then change the affordable unit count in the building as well. That it worked out to create a flex space that, you know, could be used as a nursery, a small bedroom, could also be used as an office, which, you know, if you're working from home, sometimes you change one of the bedrooms into an office. So this really leaves a space that's flexible for either a growing family or for someone who does work at home that doesn't want to take a bedroom up as an office. So we felt that this solution, you know, best suited sort of the ask that you had of us, and also trying not to reduce the affordable units and the unit count within the building, and still working with the constraints of the lot.
Okay. Because the request that we had, and I understand the constraints that you say that you're facing, and reducing the unit count, and that actually does speak to me. You know, one of the ways that we make things, I think, more affordable is, as everybody has consistently said, and I don't know how much I completely believe, is to build more housing, build more units, right? So you take one permanently affordable unit away, you are including a 3-bedroom unit which we don't really have very many of in the city that are left. So that splits the baby a little bit in the way that I'm viewing the response to what we have, but it's something that I'm willing to hear what my fellow board members say. And I know Emily has appeared on the screen. If Emily would like to have a response on behalf of the staff, I'm happy to hear it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Emily Hutchings from PPZ. I would just like to note that the Housing Division has not expressed support of the 2+ bedroom units. I think they are more in, I think it's appropriate to say they're more in support of the larger 1 bedrooms, larger studios, and the retaining the existing 2 bedrooms as 2 bedrooms, not 2+ bedrooms, to facilitate some additional square footage in the smaller units. They did not express any specific comments on whether they like to see 3-bedroom or more bedroom units. They just noted that the 2+ bedroom unit should not be considered a 3-bedroom unit.
Thanks, Emily. And one of the things that I do want to do at some point outside of this meeting, obviously, is to have a broader discussion with housing on where they do expect to see more 3-bedroom plus type units, because we haven't seen too many of them be proposed. I do know that we have another applicant tonight who's going to be answering my question on that one. But that's something that I do want to have a broader discussion with staff on. So I appreciate you making that representation. Yeah, Lynn.
Thanks, Michael. Through you, Emily, would it be possible for the planning staff to kind of pull together information, like market information, like how many 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, studios, etc., currently exist, so we have a better sense of. I liked what Michael had said about where housing is expecting 3 units, but it would be really helpful for us to have a baseline, like what currently exists within the city of Somerville, and then kind of where do we expect to see kind of larger units, and then that helps us kind of guide these decisions a little bit. Would that be possible I'm hoping it's a GIS thing, so it's like a few clicks on a button instead of like kind of going through data. But
Mr. Chair, through you, that is something that planning staff would be able to do. I do think it would be a bit of a larger project than just a GIS analysis. So we'd probably need to coordinate with the Housing Division ISD to look at building permits and the assessor's office. I don't know exactly what that would entail. It would probably take us some time, but it is something that we can provide. Anecdotally, I would like to note that we're seeing in our by right districts, so projects that don't require board review, but just offhand, we are seeing some more 3-bedroom units there, and I don't know what percentage of the new units those are. I just know that they are being built.
Lynn, did you have anything else that you would like to raise at this point? And by the way, Chris, I know we had a conversation. I don't know if we completely sidetracked from something that you were going to present, which might have been the case. If that's what happened, I apologize. But please let me know if you have a presentation or a report or something that we took away from you.
Yeah, no problem. I do have a small presentation just addressing well, one, the unit mix and the unit sizes, and then also your concerns with the west facing elevation that's on the property line that's shared with 726 Broadway. So I do have some updates to those elevations. So
yeah,
if you'd like, I can share that now. Okay, great.
Yeah, I would. I didn't mean to take this off on a sideways track.
Oh, looks like sharing is turned off, so I just sent a request.
This is Steve Carey. Yep. Chris, you should have
Yeah, I can
sharing
see it
ability
now.
now. Okay, great.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, okay, great. All right, so I'll just run through these slides rather quickly. I think we addressed the unit mix. So let me so the first few slides in the slide deck address the west facing elevation. So I'll sort of talk through those. Last time you brought up a concern with the west facing elevation, which you can see here in the rendering. So this was what we previously had proposed and had worked through the HPC. And if you remember, we do have a memorandum of agreement for this section of the project. So we did have to go back to the HPC to amend the MOA, and I think Anne had brought that up briefly at the beginning of the presentation. So we are expecting approval. We did, meet and go through the changes with them. So these are the proposed changes, and you can see what we did is we pulled back this corner on the first floor. So that we actually now have more transparency so you can see into the retail space as you're coming up Broadway. So this gives more relief to the 726 property. It also creates more of a pedestrian friendly corner. So it almost mirrors the corner that's on Willow and Broadway. And so we also brought in some trims to bring down the scale of that elevation. So we continued the precast detail along the second floor and then brought in some trim detail on the third and fourth floor. Again, this is still going to be a clapboard, so there's texture. I think there was some question about whether or not that was like a flat panel or if it was just going to be a big flat wall. So this is a clapboard, so it will have some texture to it. And then also adding these trim details helps bring down that scale, so it's not just a large wall. So you can see here, we also widen this recess. So you get even more relief now. You can see there's a bay on the 726 property. So you get more relief at that bay. And then again, this transparency in this corridor now that we created here, it also allows for more greenery along this corner. So just creating a more pedestrian, friendly public realm. The other elevations didn't change. This is looking at the public realm on the first floor where the retail Lindell's Bakery will be. So this is the previous version. So if you kind of focus in on this right-hand corner, and this is the new version. So here you can see again, this whole corner has been opened up. So now your visual corridor opens, the transparency into the retail space, and also just softens that elevation for the 726 property. And these are just straight on elevations. I'll just sort of flick through these, but they basically show the same thing. So this is that west elevation. We widened up this recess. We added some additional glazing windows. And here you can see now this looks into the retail space. And that way you get more visual connection as you're coming up Broadway. And then quickly jumping over to the floor plans. So this is the 2+ bedroom unit that we've created. So this originally was a 2-bedroom unit. We had to slightly reduce the square footage of this 1 bedroom to create this additional flex space within the unit. So you can see we have the 2 bedrooms with an ensuite, and then this is the additional nursery or office or small bedroom for future use, and it does have a window in it as well. When we widen this up, we were able to get in an additional window. So this takes place on the 3rd and 4th floor. So we added those 2+ bedrooms. So we're still at 28 units. Instead of having 5 2-bedrooms, we have 3 2-bedrooms and 2 2+ bedrooms. So that's really the major changes. So here you can see again how this is all opened up in the floor plan. So this leads to the secondary means of egress. This is the 726 property. We've included some planters, which we had located here at the outdoor seating area by the retail space. So again, just trying to create some softness and more greenery on that elevation to make it, less daunting and bring that scale down. And again, just in the landscape plan here, bringing those same pavers back. So just continuing that language.
Chris, can I ask a question about
Yep.
the plus of the 2+?
Yep.
Can you go back to the diagram of where we're at?
Yep.
I can't really see how big are we talking about in a space that you're calling a flex space that that is not a bedroom.
Yeah, it'd be 8 by 10.
Okay, so it's real small. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't have exact dimensions on it. I could.
No. I get that. I get that. I mean, 8 by 10's it's a cell. So
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the smaller units that we do, like in South Boston and other projects, I mean, they're, a bedroom is a 10 by 10, or, they're relatively small.
Yeah.
Units.
No. And that's not what we're hoping for here. All right, let me think on this. I appreciate the presentation, and the explanation of kind of where we got to where we are. So, thanks. I don't know if anybody else on your team has something they wanted to mention. I know, Ann, you had mentioned Mr. Gladys wanted to speak to us at some point about a portion of the application, and welcome to have him join us.
Absolutely. I mean, and I just want to let you know, Chairman Capuano and the rest of the board, the applicant and myself had talked to various neighbors, the commercial neighbors, Mike Mosher, who owns Ball Square Kitchen, which one of my favorite places for breakfast, is very enthusiastic because more units means, more more customers, and Ball Square Liquors are very enthusiastic. This is something that they're excited for, and it brings more vibrancy to the neighborhood. And I know Mr. Galatis from Lindell's, he doesn't want to have to leave Somerville, and I think he's going to discuss that. So I am going to mute myself and hand off to Bill.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. We continue to be very excited about the project. As you may or may not know, Lindell's is now celebrating their 137th year of being in business, and I've been lucky enough to own the bakery for the last 25 years. And we're excited about the project. It gives us an opportunity also to introduce new bakery products as well. For the past year, I've attended just about every baking expo and convention that is sponsored by the industry, and having some additional space and some new space will give us an opportunity to introduce some new products to our customers as well. So I'm here to say that we continue to be very, very enthusiastic about the project. Joe Federa and his team have kept us informed every step along the way. So I'm here to answer any other questions, and we absolutely are committed to keeping the bakery in Somerville as well. We view it as iconic, and we view it as a fiduciary trust on my part to continue to have what we consider one of the best scratch bakeries in New England, if not in the whole country.
Thank you very much, and I don't disagree with you there.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Figueredo, does anybody else on the applicant's team have anything that they'd like to present or report on before the planning board continues its discussion?
No, we've presented everything, and if there's questions for us now, I think,
Yep.
we'll quit while we're ahead.
Yep. Yeah, sure. I think there might be. I'm still thinking about the presentation that Chris just made on how I assess the project in the way I'll look at the application. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to raise about the application, ask questions? I see Amelia's hand, so floor is
Thank
yours.
you very much, Mr. Chair. Um, I'm sympathetic to the fact that our board does historically sort of push for the larger family-sized units, understanding that that's an area where there's really quite a lot of demand in the city, and which was one of our summer vision goals to sort of expand and preserve family-sized housing in the city. I'm also mindful that the design team here has sort of done their best to accommodate that ask, and we're coming up in a little bit of a spot where perhaps that full third bedroom size can't be reasonably accommodated without, as the team has pointed out, losing one of the affordable units, which is obviously another competing priority of the city's. So I would ask if something that the applicant team might consider to help us achieve our planning board goal, if my colleagues are aligned with this, achieve a goal of improving the city's housing stock in a meaningful way, filling one of these more specific niche needs, is that right now it looks like the units that have been identified, and I'm looking at the original floor plans, not the revised ones from today, that there are 3 affordable units being provided, and those are fully non-overlapping with the accessible ADA units that are being provided. And I wonder if a compromise that could require less rejiggering of force place might be offering to the housing division to build out the affordable units as ADA units as well. Because that's something that I know is also a very strong demand in the city. We are really suffering from a lack of housing stock that can accommodate people with limited mobility. And I know that that has some dimensional requirements, but I would like to believe that it could be accommodated within the units that have already been laid out. And I would personally put that forward to my colleagues as something that we might look at quite similarly to, you know, a 3-bedroom unit in terms of meeting a specific gap that we know the city has.
Yeah, like,
I'll just say, Amelia, that's a wonderful idea, and if this is something that the applicant might be able to get behind, it's something that I think I can support as well.
yeah, definitely. We can certainly get behind that to, make the affordable, some of the affordable units, fully accessible units.
Amelia, did you have anything more that you wanted to ask or raise? Are you there? Amelia, I think you might have frozen.
Am I back now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry for that. I was just saying, and that would be in addition to the accessible units that are already being provided by code.
Oh, I think Amelia might have froze again.
I think so. Do you have a response to her? I think she might come back in a second if you want to just.
I'm sorry, I'm here now. I was trying to see if the limited bandwidth worked better with audio only. So I'm sorry, this is the 3rd time I'm asking the question, but I don't know if you've heard it before. And that commitment to making the affordable units accessible would be in addition to the accessible units that are shown today that are being provided as a code requirement. So it would bring the total number of accessible units in the building to 6.
Yeah, I think, I don't think we would have any reason not to accommodate that. So
Great.
we would bring the 2 required plus the 4 additional, so it'd be a total of 6 units that are fully accessible.
I'm sorry I didn't get to hear the chair's response, but thank you for your consideration of this. And I would certainly consider this a great outcome in lieu of the 3rd bedroom unit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Amelia, I know you were frozen for a moment. response to your suggestion was that if this was something that the applicant could accommodate, this was something that would put me in alignment with you.
Yeah, we can definitely accommodate that.
If I can just raise to staff, I think this is something that would need to be approved by the housing division as part of the affordability, but I can only assume that they would be glad to have this offered. So is that something that we need to coordinate with them on before taking a vote, or is that something that we could do conditionally? Mike, that's also a question to you, I guess, is just the right way to coordinate with housing since they've already blessed a version of this previously.
I have a thought, but I love Emily's.
Mr. Chair, through you, I think this is something that could be approved conditionally. It might mean some updated documents would need to be submitted, but we have a standard condition that would cover that.
That was my thought too, for the record. Okay. Amelia, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk
I did
about?
not.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I'm finished with the lagging issue. Thank you.
It happens. It's the beauty of technology. Jahan or Lynn, did you have anything? Yep, Jahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that I certainly support Madam Vice Chair's comments and recommendations. I think this expansion of ADA units would be great for not only the project but also for the city of Somerville. I do have a brief question to the applicants, and I just want to better understand with respect to the construction, on-site construction, and also a little bit more about Lindell's Bakery. I certainly agree with you, Mr. Chair, and it's a Somerville institution from my perspective. How does that all going to work? I mean, there's obviously going to be a construction period. Construction is going to be occurring on Broadway. What's going to happen to Lindell's Bakery, during this construction period? I would love to get some additional insights on that.
This is Attorney Vigorito again. John, how are you this evening? So this has always been a concern because there was another bakery in the other part of Somerville that, and Chairman Copeland was shaking his head, and it was promised they were coming back. It wasn't my client, but it was someone in my office, and people were furious. And we had this discussion as a team. So the applicant here, DiCamillo Associates, they have another property that is literally steps away. So Lindell's is never going to be closed, theoretically. When they close down from their site right now, they're going to go a few doors away and reopen. And then construction will begin on that. So believe me, we will have pastries in Ball Square available for everybody. And as everyone smiles, because we know that's something we don't, Somerville always strives on the small business. We don't want to lose them. There's so many projects I have, and there's small businesses that could be displaced. And, my recommendation is we've got to figure out a way to keep them here or get them back. So this applicant has done it right. And that's why Bill Galatis came on tonight, because he's never closing his business theoretically, and he doesn't want to have to leave. There was a fear at some point he'd have to leave Somerville because he needed, more space, more state-of-the-art equipment, and he's going to get it all. So hopefully I answered your question. And if there's anything else, let me know.
Yes, thank you so much, Attorney Vigorito. My waistline might not agree, but I certainly appreciate
Nor mine, but listen, we got to enjoy ourselves.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else right now? So what and I say that with the recognition that because some additional information has been presented by the applicant by way of a redesign, potential redesigned floor plan, which might not end up being the case, that this would trigger the planning board's rule on inviting additional public testimony tonight to reflect on a potential change in what the unit mix and view would have been. So I don't know if anybody wants to speak on this, but I'm going to invite the public to present testimony, and I would also ask Steve to get a 2-minute timer up because we will have another presentation after this. And so I will recognize you and just remind everybody to please state your name and your street of residence for the record before you speak. So I'm going to recognize the first person that I saw with their hand up is Carol Rigo.
This is Steve Carey. Carol, I've unmuted you on our end. I think you just have to unmute on your end. Again, this is Steve Carey. Carol Rigo, you have been unmuted. I think you just have to unmute on your end. There should be an unmute button, I believe, at the bottom of your screen or the top. There should be a control panel bar that has a option to unmute. Mr. Chair, we could come back to Carol. I see another person has their hand raised.
Yeah, the button on my screen says audio, so I assume that means that's going to be uniform throughout. So Carol, we will come back to you if it's available to do so, and you can connect. I'm going to recognize Francis Foley right now. If Francis can please be unmuted, and again, name and street of residence for the record. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Francis Farley. I live on Willow Avenue. I sent a letter into the board a couple of months ago or so. It was right before a meeting that was continued and another meeting was continued. I forget the date, but I'm wondering if the members of the board received that letter where I outlined some concerns. And 2 minutes is not enough time to go through all those concerns, but I'd like to at least know that you received and read the letter that I sent.
So, Mr. Foley, I can say that we have received all the written testimony that was submitted.
But did that include my letter?
Yes.
Oh, are those issues, it seems, are not issues that the board cares about. I was told by a staff member of the planning board, I forget the person's name, that there are other agencies that deal with those concerns. Is that in fact the case?
So I'm just going to remind you right now, this is public testimony. This isn't a question and answer session, but so I will defer to our city staff's response to your inquiry.
I see. Oh, well, at least I know you read the letter. Well, I mean, at least I know you got the letter.
Sure. Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anybody else that wants to present testimony? I see Aaron Weber's hand up. If Aaron Weber can please be unmuted, and again, name and address for the record.
Sure, this is Steve Carey. Just give me 1 second. Default participants panel. All right, Mr. Weber, you've been unmuted on our end. You just have to unmute on your end.
Hi, my name is Aaron Weber. I live at 32 Summit Avenue. I want to note that the state of Massachusetts has recently released a report noting that we are in a severe housing shortage and that the state needs at least 500,000 more homes in the next decade. The latest year in which details are available suggests that only 11,000 permits were issued in 2023. It is well established that increase in the amount of housing is absolutely necessary in order to address this shortage. And I encourage the board to move this proposal forward promptly, because delay helps nobody. We are badly in need of housing of all sizes. Please, I encourage you to note the urgency of this crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weber. Anybody else want to present testimony? I know Carol Rigo had her hand up earlier. I don't know if she still wants to testify. And if so, I would welcome her to raise her hand again and see if we can try it again. And anybody else, of course. Okay. Ms.
I
Rigo,
see.
let's see if this works.
Yep. Carol, you've been unmuted on our end. You just have to unmute on your end.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can.
can hear you.
Okay. I had to switch to a different device. I live on Lexington Ave, and I love the Ball Square area. I think the conceptual vision for this building is very nice. My question is, why are there so many studio apartments when we need more family apartments? That's the end of my question.
And just a reminder, this is testimony. This isn't a back and forth question and answer.
Right.
But no, I appreciate your question. You still have another minute and a half if you have more things that you'd like to raise.
No, is there also an elevator in this building? I can't tell. That was too. I have not got to see all of the stuff from the beginning. This is the first time I'm attending this meeting, so I'm curious what else is in there that I really couldn't see from the quick floor plan that I saw.
I can address that. Yes, there is an elevator.
Okay. Chris, I'm just going to remind you as well. This is testimony. This isn't discussion.
Okay, sorry.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. I will close that section of the public hearing and open it up to further discussion by members of the planning board. And Amelia, if I could ask you, for the clarity of the board and the public, because we did have somebody testify about unit sizes and unit mixes, which is obviously a concern that I raised as well. Could you repeat what your suggestion for a compromise was? That from what I understood, from what I heard the first time, was something that I think is something I can agree to as one member, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what the proposal is.
Yes, so
Because the applicant also said that they could meet that request.
the planning board had previously asked the applicant team to review the plans and come back with a scheme that included more larger units that were appropriately sized for families. The applicant team did their best, but was unable to accommodate that without a meaningful reduction to the total unit count in the building, which would in turn reduce the number of affordable units that will be constructed as part of this project. A compromise that the board has put forward tonight for consideration is that in addition to the ADA accessible units that will be built in a number of the market rate units in keeping with code, that the affordable units being included in this project, which go to folks managed by the city's waitlist process, will also be built out to be ADA accessible units, which is another area like family housing that is an area of very high need in the city. So pending approval from the housing division, it sounds as though the applicant has agreed that that is a feasible change to make to the existing units that have been designated as the affordable units. And we think that's a good compromise in trying to meet a very specific niche need of the city's housing stock within the constraints of the project.
Does anybody have any comments or questions on Amelia's proposed compromise? As I said, the applicant has represented that they can meet that request and that condition if we include it. I have also mentioned that I would be supportive of that compromised condition. So either Nan or Jahan, if you have any thoughts, concerns, or anything like that? Or anybody else has anything that they would like to add for the benefit of this application, please raise it now. Okay. So we had also discussed a proposed condition that dealt with the plot plan issue, and I think that's a standard condition, Emily, that we can include. Is that right?
There we go. Mr. Chair, through you, yes, I think it would be a condition that one or more of the units, depending on what the board determines appropriate, would be accessible in addition to the existing proposed accessible units. Following that, again, we have a standard condition that I believe was proposed in the staff memo, that any updates to the plans be submitted for the record, that would then be posted and be included as part of the decision by reference following the decision, or following the board's decision.
Yep. And as I recall, Emily, the other proposed condition related to specifically this unit accessibility issue that we can clear it as a somewhat of a contingent condition. Okay. With that in mind, and with no other discussion by the planning board on this issue, following public testimony, review of the submitted materials, and deliberation of the required considerations outlined by the ordinance, I move to approve with the conditions as amended this evening, the special permit to establish a residential housing principal use in a general building in the MR4 zoning district, with the recommended conditions listed in the staff memos dated October 31st, 2024, December 12th, 2024, and again as amended this evening. Seconded by Amelia. Steve, can I please have a roll call vote?
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
Aye. Following public testimony, review of the submitted materials, and deliberation of the considerations outlined by the ordinance, I move to approve with the conditions as amended. The site plan approval to develop a 4-story mixed-use general building in the MR4 zoning district, with the recommended conditions listed in the staff memo dated October 31st, 2024, December 12th, 2024, and as amended this evening. Seconded by Amelia. Steve, please.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
Aye. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm
Have a good
still
evening.
trying the next case, so I'm still here.
Okay. I'll let his present team kick out and the new team kick in. And actually, before we start the next presentation, I'm going to ask Jahan if he can read into the record the notice of public hearing for Chester Street.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. 53 Chester Street, ZP 24-000054. John Greenup proposes to develop a 4-story general building type along a pedestrian street in the mid-rise 4 zoning district, which requires site plan approval. 53 Chester Street, ZP 24-000055. John Greenup proposes to establish a residential housing principal use along a pedestrian street in the mid-rise 4 zoning district, which requires a special permit.
Thank you, John. Attorney Vigorito, this is your case again.
Yes. So I'm here this
Same
evening.
attorney, different client, different team.
Different team, yes.
Okay.
If Peter Quinn can be promoted, as well as Knowles Stopford. And let's see. Oh, well, Kadi is also part of my team. So
Okay.
the ladies are doing double duty this evening. So Ann Vigorito on behalf
You
of,
always work harder than us.
well, we've got two lovely women on the board as well. So 53 Chester Street. First off, it states John Greenup. It's actually owned by G2 Par Somerville LLC. The deed does show that, but John Greenup is the manager of the LLC, so that may have been where there were some discrepancies. I think it's more of a housekeeping, and I did email Andrew Graminski, who was the planner on this, just to let him know that. I'm sure we can do something, after the fact to make sure it reads correctly. But
Can I just before we continue, I just want to clarify. Can we get a proper response before the next meeting to make sure the thing doesn't have to be renoticed? I don't want this to become unhinged due to a technicality, but
Understood.
sorry, I'm gonna proceed as if it's fine.
Okay.
And we have to do it.
And I think it is. I mean, because he is the manager of the LLC. I just, wanted to make that notation. So this evening's team is Peter Quinn Architects, Noel Stopford from BSC Group. He's our traffic coordinator, and Katia Posado from Verdant. She's our landscape architect. So this is in an MR4 district. It's a 4-story building, and this should make everyone happy. These are 3 units that will be condos, and they are 3-bedroom units. So we have, this was something that the developer applicant wanted to do. He wanted to create family units in Davis Square, because this is Chester Street. It is like right next to Redbone. So it is in the heart of Davis. Each unit will have a parking space. We find with the 3 bedrooms, you need to have 1 parking space, because if it's going to be for a family, mom, dad, child, or, however the family makeup may be, usually they've got some sort of vehicle. So, there is, and then there's obviously bicycle parking for long-term and short-term. There is a small commercial space on the first level. It's a little under 800 square feet. And we had some great neighborhood meetings, and there were great discussions on what that commercial space should be. And I saw it in the staff report, and it said we had discussed it being an art gallery. It was actually brought up by neighbors and the developer. If an art gallery wants to go there and it's allowed on a pedestrian street, we are, of course, it's just a matter of, it may not be an art gallery that wants to go there. I do know they will want to avoid any food type of establishments, hoping for something that's going to really, fit in the neighborhood scheme. But I just wanted to be clear on that. If an art gallery comes along, of course, they're going to be welcome, but they wouldn't, tell someone else no. It's just, we have to wait and see. This is within a quarter mile of a transit walk shed as well. And, we had 2 great neighborhood meetings. Ward 6 Councilor Lance Davis sponsored them. We had, the first meeting was on June 7th of 2023. Second was at November 28th of 2023. As I said, the project was very well received. There were various questions, concerns. They were all addressed during the meetings. And, in between there, we did go to the UDC, and we did that in July and August of 2023. They did make some recommendations relative to the balcony handrails to be designed to be more opaque and transparent in the materiality. They wanted a little more contemporary windows. They did give recommendations on the ground floor facade. And of course, Peter Quinn, our architect, will go through those with you, but I just wanted to mention them. Those were, at the second meeting with the neighborhood, they seemed, to be fine with them. They liked them. This is a project that I know Lance Davis continues to support it. I know there are people on this evening who are going to speak in support. We have quite a few neighbors who are excited to, this house as it is a little bit of an eyesore. So I think they're excited to see something new and improved. So with no further ado, I will hand off to Peter Quinn. I know he's ready to go.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Quinn with Davis Square. Can you hear me okay?
This is Andrew Graminski speaking. I don't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to address the legal ad inquiry.
Oh, okay.
If I may.
Let's deal with the law first.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, and I apologize, Peter, wasn't trying to talk over you. So the legal ads always include the applicant's name, which on the applicant's development review property owner authorization form, his name was listed. I do see that the property owner is G2 Par Somerville LLC. So I just wanted to note that the legal ad was properly noticed with the proper applicant's name. So we're all good. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Andrew, for clarifying that. Let's go forward.
Okay. I think I just want to check because I've had some trouble with the mic on my earbuds. Can you everybody hear me okay? Sufficiently anyways.
It's a little garbled. I don't know if you can turn the volume down on your end. It sounds like you're speaking to us from from a pulpit in a large room or something.
But anyways, I mean, we'll do my best to make this work. I have been working on this project. My firm has for quite a while. We've been through a lot of different variations, most of them small variations. We have had reorganized the facade a couple of times. Probably most fundamentally when we went through the UDC, and they were very helpful in helping us organize the arrangement of balconies and projected bays. We have these, as you can see in this 3D image here, we have, hold on just a second. See, do we have, okay, there. We have this, these bays that project out, and they're meant to not only organize our windows patterns, but also to give a little sense of scale on the street, because our buildings across the street are very traditional 2.5-story 1 and 2 family dwelling units. So we see ourselves as kind of a transition building where the ground floor we try to maintain a commercial strip, and you can see Red Bones here to the right has its parapet, and we're approximately matching it, and then wrapping it around, and then the massing of our building is more or less matching what has been proposed for the new lab building over at the Starbucks building. So we try to fit in commercially, and then from a residential point of view, we created a smaller scale to our windows. We didn't embrace any big panels of glazing. We kept it all into kind of casement-sized windows and some smaller fixed windows, and then broke it down further with balconies that have typical railings, and the bays as they project are very much sort of a contemporary interpretation of how bays project forward from mass of the building. In the corner here, what you're seeing is starting from the ground, of course, is our entry into the small commercial space that Ann mentioned. This hugs the corner. It has about a little bit over 700 square feet. And above that, we go into our residential levels. There's 3 units. The way they're laid out is a little different than you might expect, but the way we've done it is the second floor is one entire flat, and then the 3rd and 4th floors are actually stacked units, so that you have the ground floor of that, or the lower level of that unit is living, dining, kitchen, and the upper level constitutes a 3-bedroom area. So, it's an interesting floor plan for the city, and it creates a couple of different opportunities in terms of layout that will appeal to different buyers. This corner element here, we originally had this designed as an open porch, but we got into a little bit of a thing with the zoning people because they would not recognize this as an acceptable what do you call it, building element. So we had to we basically created a 3-season porch, which is both an exterior and interior space, just defined by windows, really. And that seems to actually have added and enhanced the building, because this particular corner will face south, and there'll be quite a delightful space to be sitting out there in the middle of winter. I'll take you to the plans here in just a second, just so you can get a sense for that. Moving away from our, this is the ground floor commercial space. We enter into the residential part of the building where this kind of yellow-green floor plan is. That's our residential lobby off the side street, which is Herbert Street. And then we have a small elevator that takes us up to the second and third floors. We are, when I say small elevator, it's certainly large enough to accommodate a wheelchair and an attendant. On the left-hand side, we have our 3 parking spaces that Ann mentioned, as well as bike parking and trash and recycling, and sprinkler room, that sort of thing. And then on the second floor, this is our big flat. This is, as you can see, it's on the right-hand side, kitchen, living, dining. And then we go 3 units, 3 bedrooms, including a shared patio or deck. And this is the space that I mentioned. It's a 3-season porch outside and front. And then on the third and fourth floors, you have the stacked units. So we come up off the elevator. We have a full living, dining, kitchen, and so we just have a study. And then to the right, a similar layout for the study and living, dining, kitchen. Each of these units has their own internal stair to go up to the 4th floor. And you'll see here, both of these units have large 3-bedroom layouts. And these are good size bedrooms. This is a 10 by approximately 10 and a half. That's the smallest bedroom here. Everything else is north of 11 and 12. And then shared bathrooms for the 2 secondary bedrooms and the master, of course. So that's how it lays out. And I think those are pretty nice units. We do have an expensive green roof on the roof, and if need be, Katya's here tonight to talk about the landscape scheme. I'm just going to go through the elevations just to finish that part of the presentation. So as I mentioned, we do have these bays that project, and I think this kind of gives you a pretty good idea how they lay out, because this is all shadowed. But at the lower level, we vary the materials probably in order to create a kind of interesting streetscape and break down the scale of it. So rather than just have a full, walls of glass, starting on the right-hand side, we have a large amount of glass for the retail space, and then we introduce this other siding, which is a ton of sort of a board and pattern. And then we have our right here where my cursor is, we have the residential entry, and that has a canopy over it, much as the corner has a canopy over the entry. We have a large space where we have a garage, and on that we propose to put a green trellis growing on the side of the building. And then beyond that, our garage door that leads into the garage area. And you can see the window patterns. We try to maintain kind of a strict alignment of everything in order to get kind of a strong effect of stacking this building in an interesting way, where the verticals and horizontal elements are playing with each other a little bit. The materials that we're using are fiber cement clapboard. We'd like to use a heavier variety, the Allura, but the base and the decks would be finished out with a red cedar or equivalent wood. And we would trim this with this material called Moral, which is a treated wood that paints very beautifully. And we use it a lot in our higher quality projects. Another view. This one will give you an idea of how it sits relative to red bones on the right here. And what you're seeing here is the angled bay where my cursor is, the angled three-season room, and then to the right, the projected bay that is on this side of the elevation. We have a secondary entry right here. This goes into the same lobby for residential. So there's actually two ways to get into the building. But we think the primary one will be from Herbert. And then the other sides of the building, we are treating in a kind of more simple fashion. We were right on the property line, so we can't really have what's in the way of windows. And we think that those eventually will be built to meet us with other buildings. So we're using a simple metal panel system that gives us the fire rating that we need. And this is the side facing red bones. And this side, which seems blank right now, but we are expecting that lab building to be built. We cover all of this. This is the side facing the lab building. So that's about it on the basic presentation. If you'd like, I could ask Katya to present the landscape scheme that she has. It's quite nice, considering how tight the site is.
That's fine with me. If you don't mind hopping over to the landscape plan, Peter.
Not at all. No.
Thank you.
Yep. I think this is what you're looking for.
Just before that one, or two before that one. There you go. Yeah, that one. Thank you. So as you can see, we have some great public realm improvements, primarily having to do with the sidewalk system around the two sides of the building. Right now, the sidewalks are maybe 6 feet wide if you're lucky. And they're kind of dominated by utility poles that you can see on the plan here, which will remain as small circles in this plan view, kind of towards the apex corner. There's a couple of them along the streetscape. So we are restricted or constrained a little bit by those overhead wires. So we're planting small trees where there are none at all in the streetscape right now. And widening the sidewalks overall to the required 12-foot depths that are called for. So we have a minimum 6-foot wide concrete sidewalks wrapping around the building and tree wells that are 3 feet wide to support these trees, as well as permeable pavers in that furnishing zone. And finally, about 3-foot wide frontage zone against the building to frame the building. And we're also providing a new public bench and some of these other streetscape furnishings that you can see in the imagery, the materialities represented in those images, like the typical hoop bike rack, the ribbon bench, a couple of planters out front. So this is going to be a really pretty corner and a nice corner and active and very pedestrian friendly. And cleaned up corner as compared to today. And if we go to the next page, we're looking at a section through the streetscape where you can see we're illustrating that the trees will all be supported with the structural soil below the concrete pavement at the sidewalk and beyond, so that the tree roots have plenty of room in which to grow. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at the upper roof deck where it's more than just extensive. It'll be an intensive roof because it'll be a 10-inch minimum system of depth of soils, lightweight soils that'll host a variety of native grasses you can see in the images on the right. And the final pages in my set here have to do with how we meet the green score and the details that go along with the landscape detailing. So I think that's all I need to share, but I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know if anyone else from our team needs to speak, or if Peter, you have something you want to land on.
I'm good.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay. So thank you for the presentation. I will reserve my comments and questions until after we hear some public testimony. Because we have a number of folks in the audience this evening who I'm sure are going to want to speak, but I don't know if anybody on the planning board wants to raise anything before we give them the folks in the audience. And I would actually, if we, well, can we leave both the rendering up and the timer, Steve? I don't know if we can do that concurrently. Steve, can you hear me? Can the rest of you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay.
You guys hear me now?
Yes, I can now.
I'm sorry about that. I have something going on in my headphones. I
Oh,
don't think I am able to. I don't think we can have two screen shares at once, unfortunately.
Okay, that's okay. I just think it would have been helpful if folks who testified could also see the renderings, but if that's not technologically feasible, we can always bring it back. So what I'd like to do then instead is to put up the 2-minute timer for anybody that wants to speak. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask for anybody that wants to testify in support of the application first to please raise your hand, and I will call on you in the order in which I see you. And again, I'm going to ask for your name and your street of residence for the record, please. So first person I see is Rob Gregory.
Rob, you've been unmuted on our end. You just have to unmute on your end. And please state your name and street of residence before you begin your comment. Thank you. Rob, I think you just need to unmute on your end. There should be a little audio icon that you can click.
And by the way, for anybody that's having technological issues, because someone did on the last application too, I'll reopen it if we can't get it to work on round one. I'll also be leaving the written record open on this application, so if for whatever reason your testimony isn't able to come through tonight, you'll be able to submit it in written form, and we'll receive it and accept it and read it. Mr. Gregory, I'm gonna give you another second here, and if we can't come through, I'm gonna go to somebody else, and then I'll see if we can rectify the problem on round two. How's that? Okay. Okay. I think he might call in. Yeah, next person I see is Brendan Ritter.
Brendan, you've been unmuted on our end. You just have to unmute on your end.
Hello, yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Amazing. My name is Brendan Ritter. I live at 31 Chester Street, so close by. This is really, I'd like to say this is really good to see this. I was happy to see this development on the docket. I think that the people nearby can agree that the existing building and the grounds can be maybe generously described as unfortunate. I walk past that corner very often on my way back to my house after sundown, which is unfortunately too early nowadays. And I've never not seen a rat scurry through the hedges on that corner. So I wanted to really thank Katya for her work in sort of preserving some of the nature elements into it, but maybe taking away rat homes and adding, people homes. Very good. I would also say, though, I'd much rather see an additional unit in the building rather than parking, but I completely understand what needs to be required for commercial viability. So just in conclusion, I would like to speak in favor of this project generally.
Thank you very much. The next person I saw was Kevin Fowler.
Hello, okay, I think we're good. This is Kevin Fowler and Laura Mariano. We're at 51 Chester, so we're about as a butter as it gets. We're really excited to see this project. It's going to be nice to see housing there, especially 3 units that are 3 bedrooms. It's great to see that size and that density there. We're really happy to see that. Happy to see a realistic plan that's doable to put housing into Davis. That's fantastic. And we're excited to see see that space come alive and not rats kind of way. Laura, do you have something?
Yeah, totally agree. My one request is can it be not gray? An interesting color would be lovely. But otherwise, yeah, 100% in support as the next door neighbors who are also overrun by rats would really appreciate that to be eradicated. So yeah.
Yeah, and thank you, Peter, for coming by and talking to us about this as well. It's great to have connection with a developer who's doing a project that would be disruptive to us, even if it's positive, to come by, ask us about concerns in that. So we're really appreciative of that as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The next person I see is Aaron Weber.
Aaron, you've been unmuted on your end. On our end, you just got to unmute on your end.
Hi, my name is Aaron Weber. I live at 32 Summit Avenue. I'm excited to support this proposal. I would like to say that that's for something so close to the train, it's really too much parking. Developments elsewhere are really getting below a ratio of 1 to 1, and housing for people is more important than storage for cars. So I would seriously encourage them to, the fact they have no requirement to build parking legally. So they absolutely could build less. Thank you very much.
I think this is all.
Thank you very much.
I just don't think they would be able.
Hello. Okay. The only two hands that I see are folks that have already testified, Mr. Ritter and Mr. Weber. Does anybody, I know Rep. Gregory was trying to before, and hopefully he'll be able to make his way back. But does anybody else have any testimony that would like to provide in support of the application? Please raise your hand. Going once. Twice.
Chairman Capuano, it's Attorney Vigorito. I apologize. Yes. Rob Gregory actually called me because he's not able to unmute himself. So I was trying to direct him. I felt bad. So I know he's trying. The only other thing I could think of is if I call him and let him speak. I'm trying to help out.
Is there, Steve? Is there a call, an actual physical call-in option or the phone call?
I know there is an option to call in. I believe that if the participant had, if they registered for the Zoom meeting, they would have received an email that would have call-in instructions.
But that seems a little much, right? That I would need to register in advance in order to provide testimony. That's not how public.
No, typically not. But if they had gone through that, I believe the Zoom would have sent them a instructions for joining.
You know
I'm
what?
looking on my end to see if
my invitation to this, I think, had a call-in info. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. There's a phone one-tap join via audio option. So let me do this. I don't know if this makes him a presenter or whatever I am, but that's not right that somebody would need to register in advance to be able to provide testimony when they're trying to. Let me see if I can put the phone number in if there's a group chat or something, because that's silly.
I think only panelists would be able to see the chat, but I'd be glad to read the number aloud for
this is just the one that
in.
I can do hosts and panelists. That's all I can send to. I'm gonna plug it in here. That's one of the phone numbers that I saw. So Steve, if you can read that out loud.
Sure.
I don't know if that's gonna help.
Sure. That's the number to dial would be 1.
Mr. So
oh, sorry, go ahead,
I
Emily.
apologize. Mr. Chair, I apologize, Steve. I'm not certain, so we can look this up and we can have an answer for next time. I'm not certain, Mr. Chair, whether your number will make whoever calls in the co-chair or of the meeting. So what I can do now is register through my email because I'm logged on in a different way, and I can share the number that I receive as an attendee if that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
amenable
Let's
to
do
you
that.
and the member of the public.
Yeah, not that I'm concerned that Mr. Gregory is going to take over the meeting. But yeah, please share maybe a different phone number.
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm just going to take one moment.
In the interim, while you do that, testimony is still open for anybody that wants to speak in opposition, and then we can figure out this particular issue once that's done. Does anybody want to testify in opposition to this application? Please raise your hand. And by opposition, I also mean not necessarily be opposed to it, but express concern. Going once, going twice. Here's how I'm going to run the remainder of this meeting. Okay. We obviously have somebody that's been looking to call in or provide testimony. They have not been able to do that through a technological issue. I know Emily is working on her end to be able to allow this call in to occur. I'm going to close testimony right now. And to the extent that Mr. Gregory is able to call in and fix it, I'm going to reopen testimony and take his testimony. Okay. But he will be the only person who will be allowed to testify on the reopening just because of this technological issue. So anybody else that wants to testify, please do so now. Okay, going once, going twice. I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing until and unless we are able to connect with Mr. Gregory on the phone.
Mr. Chair,
So,
through you, I was incorrect. I registered for the meeting, so it is the same number. I am able to share that in the chat.
To everybody?
It should go to everyone in the meeting, including all attendees and panelists.
Okay. So I'm still going to proceed with some comments and questions, and then if we do have the opportunity for somebody to call in and unmute, that's what we're going to do. All right. So thanks, Emily, very much. So I had a couple of questions and a couple of comments that I'd like to raise to the team first. First question I have relates to, and forgive me if this was part of the presentation, but the project includes a number of parking spaces. Are those intended to be dedicated for the commercial use, the residential use, or whomever comes in first?
Those are for residential use, Mr. Chairman. So there would be one space per unit.
One space per unit. Okay. And the commercial use will just be, get here how you get here, which is fine. Okay, that's question one. Question two, or comment two, actually. Okay, hang on. Before I start that, it looks like Rob Gregory might be back. It looks like his hand is raised. For the purpose of allowing Mr. Gregory's testimony, I'm going to pause my questions. I'm going to reopen public testimony for the purpose of inviting him. And so let's see if it works.
This is Steve Carey. Rob, I believe I've unmuted you. I do see there was a number called in. I believe it's *6 to unmute if you are dialed in. I see you're unmuted now, so you may be able to speak and we should be able to hear you.
Yeah, I thank you very much, members
Yes.
of the board and chairman. I appreciate that. Sorry about that as well.
Nope, don't
Um,
worry. It's tough
My name's
sometimes.
Rob. Yep. My name's Rob Gregory. I'm the owner and founder of Red Bones at 55 Chester Street. I also live at 39 Chester Street with my wife and my family. I am calling to voice I'm in favor of this project, and I would like to see it go forward. The owner of the project, John, came to me in the beginning and showed me what he wanted to do, talked to me extensively, and said he wasn't going to go forward unless, I approved of the plan. He's been, and I did take a good hard look at it, and I do approve of it. It'd be nice to have the building in good repair, and I think the neighborhood will appreciate it. I live and own the house where we are at 39 Chester Street. John's been great to work with. His son's been there. He has also been very respectful of Red Bones and, ensuring that, business will be able to continue while he's under construction. And I'm sure he will, I'm sure he will do that. I don't know what else to say, except it'd be nice to see that corner livened up again. It's been a long time in disrepair with nobody living there. So I'm very much in favor. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Okay. I'm going to close that portion of the public hearing and get back to discussion between the planning board and the applicant team. So that was one question. Second question is more of a comment. One of the members of the public who testified kind of shared a concern that I have, the two sides of the building that are otherwise unarticulated. And by that, I mean the side facing Red Bones and the side facing the proposed lab building, which to my knowledge has not yet been constructed. Is that still the case? Okay. We have had, and this board has raised a number of times. Now, we wish this applicant, great luck, and we hope they are able to construct their lab building. But there has been a significant hiccup over the last several years of lab buildings that have been permitted but not built. I hope this isn't one, but so far it hasn't been. With that in mind, you are next to a single-story building and a no-story lot. So having two sides that have somewhat plain gray faces, even if something does go there at some point, still means you're going to be probably the tallest building on the block going in both directions. So people looking down the street from either Chester or Herbert are going to see kind of a blank face, which is a wall that might face a building maybe someday. This board has had a long practice of not allowing just blank kind of butts of buildings and backs of buildings. We like buildings to be built with four sides and that have respect to all four sides, irrespective of maybe what might come later. Because, I look at this in the present. What is this application as it currently sits on this site? Now, I'm not saying add windows and bays and things that might just be closed in. Some ways that we have looked at kind of otherwise blank faces of walls in the past have been like green wall trellises and things like that, just to at least break up the goddamn monotony of a gray wall. That could, maybe be taken down once the lab building is built. But right now, all we've got is, two sides of a building that are otherwise, flat and pretty unappealing. So I'm hoping we might be able to get some creativity around how to at least enliven those sides of the buildings that hopefully at some point will be um, joined by some neighbors, but haven't been yet. So I'm wondering if you might be able to weigh in on some ideas. That's one that I had. I know we had done that on a on the little Flatiron building that we permitted over on Prospect Street and a few other buildings as well. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on doing something like that, because I don't like, blank faces.
Sure. Your point. Yeah, thank you for that comment. We actually designed this building about a year ago, maybe even more than that. And at that time, the lab building seemed like it was, heading out of into the bullpen as fast as it could, before that all sank. Hadn't really given a lot of thought to it. But I completely agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that something should be done like that. I like the idea of vines, especially on the west side facing where the lab building would be, because I will get enough light for the time being. And it is continuous with what we have been proposed at the lower level on the Herbert Street side, which also is vines. So we could do something like that. I've also doing on other projects quite a bit of work with varying metal panel colors and textures to create, kind of a visual interest, and that might be an appropriate way to deal with the side facing red bones, especially closer to the street edge where you see it more easily. If it could be made conditional, I could work something out that still stays in our budget with the planning department that would be something we could build in the course of things. The other possibility is to do a mural or something like that, but I find that murals tend to get their own constituency, and then you find you can't build the building next to you because you're going to hide it, cover it up. So that's just something could be just enhanced with some paint color or something, shadow lines and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think we certainly could do something like that. I'm getting a message from the owner that they would be in favor of that as well.
Okay. So what I'd like to see then, Peter, is so we're not going to vote on this tonight. The written comment is going to be left open until just before our next meeting, and okay. I'd like to see some ideas. I'd like to get some renderings on options, because I don't want to, exactly what you said about kind of a mural is that somewhat permanent, somewhat personal, and would be difficult to be covered up if something ends up going right next door, right? So something that's possibly removable when, if and when it's appropriate, but for the time being, I'd love to see some creative ideas on what we can do on some of those faces.
Yeah, no problem. We'll take care of it.
Okay. And one other aspect of just a positive comment is thank you for proposing some 3-bedroom units. That's something that,
that's our
as you were in, I know, but you designed them as well. And I want to thank the team that's not just directly directed to you, for doing something that the city does truly need. So I want to thank the team for proposing a project like that. Those are my comments and questions on this application at this time. Does anybody else want to raise any comments? I saw everybody. The first person I saw was John, so I'm going to go with you, my man.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question for the applicant. If the applicant's team could pull up, if someone could pull up the landscape plan, I just have a brief question regarding that.
Hang on a sec. I think you have it now.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. So I know this was noted in the staff memo as well. When it comes to the flower beds to the north and I believe east, if there's going to be accessibility concerns to maintaining those flower beds, I just wanted to get a sense from the applicant in terms of how those flower beds are planning on being maintained.
Sure, I can try to answer that. Are you speaking about the skinnier little alley-like plant
Yes.
that's to the northwest on this plan, but it's actually like
Northwest,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So that is simply Carex pennsylvanica, which is a spreading sedge, looks like grass. It doesn't need mowing. It's a native, so there's nothing not to love about it. Doesn't need maintenance. It's not a place for anyone to access, but it's doing a little bit of something for the environment.
Understood. And just as a follow-up, it needs limited sunlight as well. Should there
It
be?
isn't, yeah, I mean, we're challenged here, aren't we? And it maybe we can, you know, I understood the idea for some vines here temporarily. Maybe this would be replaced with some temporary vines to grow on this wall. So maybe there'd be a shade loving vine is a little bit of an oxymoron. There aren't too many. So I'll be challenged to find something that could function or grow on a trellis structure on this side too. But, you know, we're trying to find something that has a little bit of presence even in the winter. So this is a sort of almost like a semi-evergreen kind of a grass. And there are a lot of positives, but it may not be like the most lush and beautiful Carex pennsylvanica you've ever seen because it is challenged by a little bit of shade there. And in the future, when a huge building gets built there, it'll probably become less so of a green, grassy look. But for now, it'll probably be okay because we open to the sky and there'll be some reflective light and openness to the north on the adjacent lots.
And also,
Understood.
this is Attorney Vigorito. These are going to be condos, so there will be a condo association, and there will be a budget, you know, for the maintenance outside for landscaping and so forth. So I'm sure, you know, there'll be maintenance people who regularly, you know, take care of everything as well.
So that's very helpful. That's all I had, Mr. Chair, at the moment. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm very intrigued by this native grass that doesn't need mowing or maintenance. I'm down. I'm in. Who else? I think I saw both Lynn and Amelia. So I just saw Lynn's hand, so I'm gonna recognize her next.
Thank you. So this is a question for the applicant, Chair through you. So this is my neighborhood. And so I walked over to 53 Chester because I live in Davis Square. And one of the concerns I have as both a resident and on the planning board is this is a mixed use building. You're hoping to put something in the first floor, and yet you're surrounded by, while I was sitting here, I can think of at least 5 buildings within 100 feet of this that are boarded up and empty. And as we talk about, you know, I understand that the comprehensive plan is seeking to have mixed use, but there's vertical mixed use and horizontal mixed use. With the location of this building being so close to Elm, almost, you know, kitty corner to the new H Mart, et cetera, like, is it really the most appropriate use to be putting in a commercial, like right in that spot, when there's clearly unmet unmet supply currently? So that's the first question that I have. I mean, would it be more appropriate to put in, I love that it's, you know, families as well, but you know, a smaller unit. Amelia earlier referenced having accessible units. It's right there on the first floor. Could it be an apartment? And then the other question that I have, and I'm so glad we have the lawyer for both, but we were talking about 720 Broadway with 28 units and no parking. And now we're talking about 53 Chester with 3 units and 3 parking spots. And I'm confused. That I think to quote our chair from last meeting, can somebody just square that for me?
This is Ann Vigorito. I'm the attorney. So, and I also was the attorney for 720. So as far as the commercial space, this is an MR, district. Generally you're required to have a commercial space in that mixed unit building. And I agree with you because I don't live in Davis Square, but I'm there often, and it's a little. I'm starting to feel like it's the forgotten square. You know, there's been so much concentrations in other places, but you know, the hope is that the right commercial tenant will go into this spot. I know we had talked about like some sort of yoga wellness that would kind of be nice for the people who are hopefully families. It could be they're 3 bedrooms, so and they're going to be condos for sale. I mean, the belief would be that there'd be families, like parents with maybe, young children or even older children, because they're going to be good sized bedrooms. So now I'm going to bridge this onto the parking. And yes, this is also within a transit walk shed as the 720 is, but to gear towards families, and I talked about this a little bit in my presentation, we do find that, a family would, it could be, it's most likely a one vehicle family. I speak, my son is now a college freshman, but I have to tell you, I could, between my husband and myself, between all of his practices for wrestling and, doctor's appointments, we need the vehicle. So by not having the parking, we would be fearful we would shut out a possible family coming in, because they'd be like, oh no, I need, they've got the car seats. I can remember those days like yesterday, and pack and plays and everything else. So we want to make it, accessible and really working for a family. So that was why, we did with the one, and it's one space for a 3 bedroom unit. But I don't know if that answered enough for what you were looking for.
Can I just add to that? When you're done, Ian?
I'm done.
Yeah, so this location is also on a pedestrian street, which, is defined in the zoning bylaw, requires a commercial use on the front part of the ground floor. So we really had no choice but to put that into the plan from the beginning. So that it also is in the small business overlay. So it has its own set of rules, and we've met that requirement. We actually had to change the retail area dimensionally a little bit in order to make sure it complied with zoning. So it has been looked over pretty carefully. But instead of this space, as Ann said, something like a wellness studio, a personal trainer, something that would be of interest to the neighborhood as well. That not necessarily something that would necessarily be connected to those other storefronts you mentioned. And since my office is in Davis Square, I just want to add, the reason why there's so many shuttered storefronts is primarily because the big landlords that were acquiring these properties, such as the building the Starbucks is in, and where the Burn is, they pushed out a lot of the tenants that they had in anticipation of doing these big lab buildings. As soon as the leases were up, they wouldn't renew them. So it's been a real struggle in Davis Square to try to get the commercial back, since nothing seems to be happening in the lab world. And I'm sorry to take up time on that, but it's sort of a hot topic. You get me going on it. So,
if I may, and just to, I too have a son who's in college. We used a tandem to get around, not a car. So I'm just saying, as a family, like right here, you're talking to somebody as your target demographic, and
absolutely.
The tandem was the family station wagon. So I would drop him off at Cambridgeport and take him to his activities, and it was just a grand old time. So I hear what you're saying. I understand that that's conventional wisdom. I also think that, and I'm on a street now with a number of families, and all the bikes go all the time. They do have cars, but the cars stay put. So I'll let the other board members kind of chime in, but that much parking that close to the area, given the other stated goals for the city, that raises some concerns for me.
Understood. I know when the applicant began, deciding on how to develop the site, he did talk with brokers and so forth, and they had, they were very forceful that they needed to have, at least one space per unit if it's going to be a 3-bed, and you're trying to get the families in those units. That was, recommendations. I have some other projects throughout the city, and they're 3 units with 3 bedrooms, and they all, and we've had this talk, and these are in different wards, that the parking, one space really, is something. And especially if it's a condominium, because they're buying it. It's not like you say, okay, I rent it and I suffer out for a year without any parking. This is something that, it would, we wouldn't want to build them and then, they're not sellable because there's no parking. So that was kind of the rationale behind giving each unit one space.
Anything else? Okay. I'll respond to both kind of issues that, so real quickly, and I do know Amelia had her hand. I just want to address 2 things the way I'm thinking about, because I don't want to lose the thought, if you don't mind. One, Peter, I want to appreciate your response as to why there are so many vacant storefronts. That's why I wasn't super gung-ho about putting 2 labs across the street from each other in Davis Square when labs weren't being built anywhere in the goddamn region. But you know what? Let's,
See
take
what
away
happens.
Sligos. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing something go in some of those locations that that have unfortunately had to go away based on a number of factors. And to Attorney Vigorito's point about marketability, the only reason I voted to recommend the no parking minimum amendment to the zoning was because all of you, including the city, convinced me begrudgingly that we should let the market dictate what an applicant thinks is actually going to make their project saleable. And in this case, this particular applicant has determined that they need or want 3 spots. I was told only a few weeks ago, let the market decide, let the market decide. And here we have an applicant who has said, this is what my market we think can bear. And now I'm being told, I feel like what the city said to me the other day about a different project is, we only think the market to decide when we agree with that. And that's not really where I'm at. So so I appreciate both of your responses on that. For one, I'm perfectly fine with the application as it relates to those issues, but I just wanted to raise those points because I think this is a good discussion to have on an application that many people might have expected would have come to us with no parking. So I appreciate seeing something that we can have this discussion on very soon after having, passed a zoning amendment that allows you to do this. So, Amelia, you were going to go. And
Thank you,
I
Mr. Chair.
apologize. I stepped on you.
No, not at all. And I appreciate going later because a number of my colleagues have covered issues that I would have wanted to talk about. So thank you to everyone for that. I will touch on just 2 items then. First, this is a very minor point, but it looked like in the neighborhood meetings there was sort of a commitment being voiced that this would not be a restaurant or a coffee shop or that type of use. And it's said a few times that like it's intended to be an art gallery. I find that to be I'm thinking about whether or not I find that concerning because that may well be your commitment in this moment as far as the first owner and the tenancy that they would have. But when I see things in the narrative that acknowledge that this isn't being designed for loading because that's not the owner's intention, like it's still a commercial space on a pedestrian street that is difficult to design for, and there's no guarantee that the developer will remain the owner and that use won't change over time. So I'm concerned about sort of voicing a commitment not to install uses that are permitted as a right in this location. And would ask you to think about whether there are modifications that you would want to make to the ground floor to accommodate all of the uses that are in fact permitted as of right here. Just to make sure that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot with a use that is more loading intensive, you know, if and when that day should come under a different owner. So that's one thing I would ask if we could perhaps spend a few moments on next week or next time. And second is, I really hate to be the one to bring up sort of design considerations because it's not my area of expertise, but I find this facade design to be really non-contextual and a bit jarring. And I know that the UDC has gone through this with you previously, and I also hate to reopen that, but this board is not necessarily bound by the UDC's recommendations. And I'm struggling with, I think, two things in particular. One being the roof line and the cornices and the fact that I feel like the top of the building resolves in like a very awkward way. And I know that it's challenging because of the corner lot and the sort of triangular face that we're dealing with. But I do wonder whether any of the other schemes that were presented to the UDC sort of handled that transition to the top of the building in a way that is a bit more graceful. Because it just feels very forced, and I don't want to ask you to totally reconceptualize it, but if there was an alternative that's already been considered or designed that might handle that differently, I for one would be very interested in seeing it. And second, I heard in the beginning of the presentation that this is something that came out because of a zoning constraint, and I'm very sympathetic to that, but I'm confused by the architecture that's happening with like the front corner sunrooms here. So we've got these sort of windows that don't seem like they have very much dimensionality to them. None of the bays have, like per the one 3D rendering, none of the bays look like they have, they all look like they're very one-dimensional. And then within those windows, there's now a metal balustrade that's only like 6 inches high, projecting from the window line to, I'm having trouble understanding what the intention was functionally or aesthetically in that space and with the way the window and the railing are being handled. And I would, if it's functional, I would greatly appreciate that explanation. I think that's my comment for the moment.
If I could just, this is Attorney Vigorito, if I could just discuss your first comment about the commercial space. And I apologize, I think I was speaking too quickly. I was drinking some coffee at the beginning because the art gallery conception was brought up by some neighbors at a neighborhood meeting. And the applicant and the team had said, oh, you know, of course, it would be great if an art gallery wants to come in, but, you know, we don't, we couldn't tie ourselves to that. You know, we're hoping, you know, they would try to avoid the food business just because, you know, they're sometimes, you know, they're the people who live above are not pleased with, you know, the smells and the odors, but the discussion was whatever is permissible in a pedestrian walkway would definitely be, you know, obviously welcome. And we don't want to constrain this project or this commercial space to one any given thing. I mean, I guess at the time, once it's built and, you know, it's put up for rental, you know, we'd love to see the right business come in.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that clarification and the intent. I'm responding to the neighborhood meeting report saying how will deliveries be handled, and the note that says it will not be a restaurant or coffee shop, so they will happen very infrequently, if at all. The developer is keeping delivery traffic in mind, and like cafe or restaurant is absolutely a permitted use in this district on this pedestrian street. So I don't think that we should be designing saying this will never be a cafe or restaurant. Just to
we don't know what's going to. Absolutely. We don't know what could happen in 10 years.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And especially in Davis, I feel like it is a place of many different types of coffee establishments that we enjoy going to all of them. But Peter Quinn is going to discuss the designs component of that because he has some information.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So, well, a couple things. I would be happy to bring those designs to our next meeting. I understand that this will be continued, and I need to prep them a little bit and just look to see if there's any zoning violations in those, because that's kind of how we got to some of these changes that you're describing, including that railing that's, connected to the windows. So I'll bring them and I'll be happy to take you through them. And, there are parts of the older designs that I actually liked, but the UDC didn't like them. And you may agree with me or not, but, but you're kind of hitting on some of the same points that I was trying to push, at the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, I think this will help resolve, with a little bit of research, I'll be able to give you better answers about the corner as well.
Thank you so much. And I certainly, I can see that it's struggling with the constraints of the site. So thank you for understanding. I don't mean to be critical of it sort of out of the blue. It's just definitely it's quite a puzzle you've got there.
And you can see because the plot is actually rounded at the corner, it makes it more difficult for us just to put a standard, kind of square building there. That's how the angle comes about, because of the setbacks and the like. Yeah.
I'm not asking you to create a new rendering, but if it were possible to, in our meeting next week, to have and maybe staff can pull these, but the renderings from the Elm Street, sorry. I had separately on my computer been trying to pull up side by side the expected Herbert Street facade of the lab building if and when it is built, to sort of understand how, if this were more contextual in relation to that. And I don't know if that's something that you had considered or that would be worth considering, but in trying to square the fact that this is like a very modern building at the edge of the neighborhood where we're sort of in transition between the commercial district and a much more residential district, looking at it in conjunction with the building that we believe will be built behind it might be also helpful in just thinking about how it fits into that context. But I sort of defer to staff and to the chair on whether that would be useful to other folks.
Yeah, so we actually do have the material that was approved by this board for that lab building. However, it is not a lot of detail. I think it was probably approved in sort of a master plan mode, with the idea that they would come back with a more detailed building at some point in the future. The massing was there, and we did try to work with that, and knew where glazing would be and where it would be solid. That's about it. So, but I'll bring those as well, and that'll be helpful for the discussion.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
What? Anybody? Okay. So I think we have some expectations for the next time we meet. Which, by the way, for the record, is going to be the 20th of February. We also have a joint hearing that night with the land use committee at 6:30. So we will see what we can accomplish in the squeeze time between 6 o'clock and 6:30, and what time that joint hearing lets out. I tend to think that Steve, do you recall if that joint hearing has been limited to one agenda item?
It is. It's going to be limited to a zoning map amendment. So never can totally predict how long a hearing is going to go, but I think it's reasonable to expect it'll be reasonably short.
Okay. Well, good then, because we'd love to be able to get through some substantive business on the 20th. So what I'm going to do is leave the written comment open until 7:30 on Thursday the 13th. Written comment and testimony can be submitted to planning@somervillema.gov. And I guess I have to formally continue all to the 20th. So what's happening there?
Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry to maybe be misremembering, but I thought when we amended the rules and regs, we wound up going with Friday morning.
What did we do, Steve?
This is Steve Carey. I was just gonna jump in and say the same thing. We did 9 a.m. on the Friday prior.
Okay. Yep. You're right. I'm wrong. 9 a.m. on Friday the 14th. So it's a wonderful Valentine's Day gift for Steve. Planning at somervillema.gov. So we're going to continue you folks on Chester until the 20th. Unless you think you need some more time after that, you can always, let us know. So the chair moves to continue.
Sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
Chair Capuano. Just a reminder, we do have to continue the special permit and site plan approval separately,
Okay.
being two separate applications. Yeah.
Okay. Chair moves to continue the special permit section of the application to the 20th, seconded by Amelia. Steve, can you call the roll?
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
Aye. Chair moves to continue, what is it, the site plan approval section of the application, the 20th, seconded by Amelia. Steve?
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
Aye. Okay. See you all in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
There is no other business before the planning board. It is 8:03 p.m. I'm sure people are hungry. The Celtics are losing. New after the Mavs trade. So who knows how that's going to wind up. So with that in mind, the chair is going to move to adjourn this evening. Seconded by Amelia. Steve, please.
Lynn Richards,
Aye.
Jahan Habib,
Aye.
Amelia Aboff,
Aye.
and Michael Capuano.
Aye. Thank you all. See you in a few weeks.
Thank you.